Now available in paperback and Kindle Unlimited, E-Steam Goddess of. Hell's aspiring angel takes on a demonic dominatrix in this action-packed all-new E-Steam series adventure. Get E-Steam Goddess of in paperback and Kindle Unlimited today. I was deeply troubled by some of the responses in the comments section to my recent video talking about Donald Trump's racist tweet on Twitter. And what's deeply troubling to me is that many people could not see how racist this statement was and how deeply troubling it is for the overall direction of America. Now, when I looked at that tweet critically, I said to myself, this is a racist statement, because to tell people to go back to their countries and clean them up and fix them, that's something that a white supremacist and a white nationalist would say regarding Mexicans and other ethnicities who he finds to be undesirable or she finds to be undesirable. And it's a statement that, as I see it, is one that is based on the hatred of those peoples out of the belief that those people are bringing down the quality of life in the United States. So that statement right there, I can see the inherent racism at the foundations of that statement, and I can see where it is based in the hatred of peoples believing that they are bringing down America, because these are the statements that many racists use in the places like your Texas, your California, and the Deep South, and they believe nothing wrong with telling people to go back to their countries. Now, what really is troubling isn't that Donald Trump just made the statement, it was that people supported the statement and did not see the racism between the lines. You have many people out here who are justifying that statement because they want to get technical and say, well, he didn't mention any ethnicities, but if you understand racism, you understand that between the lines of those words, that was all about making a statement to people saying that these people, I don't want them in this country, and that they're bringing down the quality of life for white Americans. Because that's what that was all about, talking about go back to their dysfunctional countries and fix them, when in actuality, when I look at the big picture, when it comes down to America, Americans have a bit of a mess with their own country, and the people who Donald Trump was directing that at were, in the case of those 4 congresswomen, American citizens. And this is where people get it mixed up. They think because the congresswomen reacted by responding to him that he wasn't just speaking about all sorts of minorities, because again, this is a statement that racists use against minorities because they believe these minorities are destroying their smooth world and their ideal world. However, if it wasn't for Americans hiring those minorities, they would not be on the job. So this racist statement comes out of a place of ignorance, because if it wasn't for those minorities doing the jobs that built this country, for example, with blacks who built America up through slave labor and went out here and built up many of the infrastructure you use to do trade and commerce right now, you wouldn't have a country. Moreover, if it wasn't for all of that low-wage labor that many of these American companies enjoy through things like your H-1B visas, which import thousands of Chinese and Indian workers into fields like information technology, Wall Street, and banking, we would not be able to be the so-called superpower we are right now, because if it wasn't for American companies importing all of that labor from those so-called dysfunctional countries, you would not be able to have that labor that allows many of these companies to reap in those record profits. And most of these Americans who have this go back to your country mentality don't see the big picture on how these corporations are playing both sides, and how guys like Donald Trump will talk one thing out of their mouth about how these people are turning the country into a mess, when in actuality it is their policies that are turning the country into a mess, because these elites want to be able to get this cheap labor, and they don't want to pay American citizens a proper wage, because what they do again is use cheap labor from foreign countries as their labor source, and they don't want to pay a kid fresh out of college with a computer science degree the 6 figures he's supposed to get that would bring him into a middle class, because they would rather import some Indian or Chinese labor and get it at $50,000 to $60,000 a year. But your Donald Trump wants to tell those people to go back to their countries, when in actuality these corporations bring these people into the country, and they import these people because they want to be able to get lower wage labor, and they want to be able to depress labor costs. So which one is it, Donald Trump? I mean, you sit there and talk about how these people's countries are a mess, but it's the U.S. who brings people over in order to try to lower wages and take money out of Americans' pockets. And your Donald Trump further went on in another tweet that was also, I believe, to be racist, where he talked about how if people hate America, they need to leave America. And this is one of the most un-American statements I have ever heard from this president, because when you look at the foundation of America, America was founded by British colonists, and not only British colonists, but it was founded by Dutch colonists and a whole host of other people, not to mention imported African slaves. And when we did not like the governance we got under the crown of the king, what we did was we had a revolution. And one man, Thomas Jefferson, said, if you don't like the government, you can put off the government and replace it with a new government. So, according to your Donald Trump, your Thomas Jefferson, one of our founding fathers, would be considered an enemy of his state, because he says if you don't like America, you can leave. But Thomas Jefferson, one of our founding fathers, said if you don't like the government, you can take off the government and put on a new government. And unfortunately, most Americans are so caught up in their emotions about Donald Trump's rhetoric that they cannot see how he doesn't really have an understanding of our United States Constitution, the 26 amendments of our United States Constitution, nor does he have an understanding of the principles of what founded this country. And that's what I find to be quite troubling about most Americans, is that they're sitting there, they're taking their country for granted, and they're not appreciating what's great about our country. Now, when it comes down to your Donald Trump, he's acting more and more like President Pookie, something I called him in another video. And your Pookie is a guy who is like those guys from the single mother households who believe everybody has to think his way, everybody has to believe his way, and everybody has to agree with him in order for things to work. And that type of principle does not work in our United States and is not a part of the executive branch of the President of the United States. The executive branch of the President of the United States is supposed to be for an individual who understands that when you propose something, you are going to be disagreed with. When you present a difference of opinion, you are going to be disagreed with. And when you have a disagreement, you have to present a cohesive argument that persuades others to see your viewpoint and why it not only benefits yourself, but also benefits we the people of the United States, the people who you are supposed to serve. And when I look at both your Donald Trump and your Congress and your Senate, I don't see a government that is serving the we the people. I see a government that is becoming more and more disconnected from we the people, as it has gotten caught up in the rhetoric of these two political parties, the Democrats and the Republicans, and that is a complete betrayal of what we the people are all about. We the people were supposed to be the ones represented by the government, but it seems like every passing day in the late 21st century, we the people are becoming more and more lost as the government starts representing itself, and it's all about protecting its interest and not taking care of the everyday man on the street. And because the everyday man on the street is becoming lost, he only is getting caught up in this rhetoric that your people like your Donald Trump talk about making America great again. But when I look at Donald Trump's America, I don't see anything great. If anything, I see an America that mirrors the America of 1919 and Woodrow Wilson, and not the America that I would see as ideal. And when I look at that America, that was America, the Woodrow Wilson era, that was filled with racism, filled with discrimination, and placed black people on the level of second-class citizens. And during that era, we had many whites talking about how immigrants like the Germans, the Irish, and the Jews should go back to the places where they came from when those people came to America for an opportunity at a better life. And many of those Irish, Jews, and Germans, and many others, French, and many others, they helped build an America filled with many businesses, and there was a lot of prosperity because those people were willing to come here and work with their own two hands. But your Donald Trump, he sits there as a son of an immigrant and tells people to go back to wherever they came from. And again, that's a racist statement, and more importantly, as I see it, an extremely troubling one for the son of an immigrant to make that type of statement. And again, I believe that statement comes from a place of hatred of not only black people, but people of color. So when I look at your President Trump, I can see the racism in his statement. And sadly, most people are so caught up in their feelings about President Pookie that they can't see the truth about your President Pookie to understand where he was coming from with that statement. And what's really sad is most Americans are in this honeymoon phase about this Donald Trump, and they remind me again a lot of these teenage girls once they fall in love with the bad boy and fall in love with the biker. And no matter what people would tell the teenage girl about the bad boy or the biker, what that did was make them love him more. And I believe the only thing that's going to get people to understand how bad Donald Trump is for Americans to experience him. Because I recently read in an article that proved my points that after one of Donald Trump's rallies, you had people saying it made them want to support him more. And again, this is what happens with the bad boyfriend. Everybody knows he's bad. Everybody knows he's terrible. But because people are telling that teenage girl that the boy is bad, it makes them want him more until the bad boy does something so bad that they start to see the truth about him. And sadly, I believe the only way for people to see the truth about your Donald Trump and why he's not qualified to be the president of these United States is that they're going to have to see him do something so bad that they realize they made a mistake. But sadly, I believe most Americans, when it comes down to white, as related to racism, they would rather deny the problem instead of acknowledging it, because for this Donald Trump to even win the presidency shows how deeply damaged Americans are and deeply damaged our union is, because instead of us trying to go out here and be the best and brightest Americans and really roll up our sleeves to make America great, what we're looking to do is buy into slogans, buy into rhetoric, and buy into all sorts of ideals and ideas, and that's not what makes America great. What makes Americans great is the fact that when you make a mistake, you admit a mistake, and you admit that you are responsible for your own lives. And the sad part is, most Americans are looking for a quick fix. They're looking for somebody to do something for them, and they're not looking to do something for their country. So that's where I see the problem with we the people, because we the people don't want to acknowledge the problem with America, and we don't want to go out here and put the work in to make a great America. We want to buy into slogans and ideas from Donald Trump, and again, these ideas are racist, they are troubling, and there will be some that would say, oh, I am a liberal, but I take no sides in this whole political debate. I look at this political state of America, and it is a sad state of affairs, because once you present logical facts and reason to people, and they get caught up in their emotions, what's sad is that they can't take the time to think critically about a statement from a president of the United States and realize the racism behind it, without getting so emotional to say, oh, you're a liberal, when you have a person who is not taking any sides in the matter, saying that yes, there's a problem with the Donald Trump, and there's a problem with the 4 freshman congresswomen, because the 4 freshman congresswomen, within 1 year of being in Congress, have not proposed a single piece of legislation to help we the people or the voters of their communities, nor have they focused on helping the very people they were supposed to serve. So instead of looking to serve the people, like overall, both sides are serving themselves, and it's all about them arguing back and forth instead of looking out for all of we the people here in these United States. And that's the thing that's really troubling, again, is that we the people are being lost, and most of we the people who have critical thinking skills, we can see where the problems are, but we're powerless to do anything about it. But when most of the other people are so caught up in the rhetoric that they can't see where this is dysfunctional, because all they're doing is feeling and no one is thinking. And what's worse is no one is thinking about the consequences of Donald Trump's America in the long term for American citizens, and no one is thinking about the consequences of the actions on both the left and the right, because on the right we have people in their feelings, and on the left we have small contingents talking about how they want to do very treasonous things, like groups in Silicon Valley who have been alleged to have been talking about things as related to the next election, and the constant censorship of the right, people who have so-called views on the right, on social media. So I look at the whole big picture of America, and I see a country that's not being as great as it used to be, and the real problem is that most people in America have no connection to their history, they have no connection to their heritage, and they have no understanding of what the principles of their country are. And because they're disconnected from their history, heritage, and their culture, what's happening is America is becoming lost. And if America loses its way, like I'm seeing it doing right now, things are going to get a lot worse. And instead of America being great again, I see America becoming a very, very sad place to live in the next 5 to 10 years. If you'd like to see me make more videos like this, you can donate to my Patreon by clicking the link in the description box. And if you want to try some of my SJS Direct publications, you may do so by clicking the link to Amazon.com. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.